Hello, welcome to this talk on the career of being a senior software developer. My name is Neil Vine and I'm a senior software developer at Fidessa, which is part of the ION group, which do financial services for banking. In particular, I work within the derivatives, the futures and options side of the business, and the team that I'm working with, we produce the front end or the user interface of financial trading systems. And I did a Google before this presentation, and if you Google Fidessa trading system, this is one of the images that comes up, and this is a typical setup a trader might have for using our front end. Okay, let's look at roles and responsibilities. My job title, I'm employed as a senior software developer. And what I actually do encompasses what I've laid out in front of you here. I do software development, so I do coding and various other activities. I'm going to talk more about that shortly. I'm also a Scrum Master. If you're not familiar with the term, I'll do a separate talk on that another time. But really, I'm helping a team to work using a particular way of working, and that's we have a big attempt at making the work visible, so it's easy to inspect the work where everything's at, and to make adjustments to it if need be. We use a board for this with different columns, such as a to-do column, an in-progress column, and a done column. We aim to work in 2-week sprints. So we plan the work for 2 weeks, we commit to it, and as a team, we work for 2 weeks, and then we pause. We review and reflect on how things have gone, and we look at making adjustments to improve how we work, and then we plan for the next 2 weeks, and off we go again. I'm a line manager. Currently, I'm responsible for 2 direct reports, and I'm very keen on developing those direct reports so that they would grow in their capacity in their careers. And part of my role is encouraging them and empowering them to be able to progress. I'm also a performance coach. I was trained internally, and this is similar to counselling, but instead of solving problems, personal problems or mental health problems, this is very much about career progression. So generally someone would come to me with a goal, but they're unsure how to get to that goal, what the next steps might be. We'd have a session, maybe for an hour, and I aim to be a mirror or a picture or a map to them to help them get a better understanding of where they currently are, where they want to go, what the options might be, what the obstacles are, and help them to come to a conclusion on what their next actions are on the way forward. Okay, so senior software developer, what are the skills required? So coding, in particular, I'm mostly using a language called C#. As with most coding jobs, you're expected to be adaptable and use other languages as well, but this is a primary one. C# is from Microsoft, and it's very similar to Java, if you've heard of that. Some of the things you absolutely need to be able to do in addition to coding is communication. I can't overemphasize enough, you need to be able to communicate in written form, email, messages, in documents, technical documents, specifications, and you need to be able to communicate in person, face to face, and you need to be able to communicate with all sorts of people, with those who are the customer facing and maybe don't understand coding, but they understand how the customer is going to use the system. And you need to be able to communicate with fellow developers who understand the exact details of the coding. teamwork. To be in my team, you really need to be willing to be a team player. That means you're not focused on what you're doing only. You're also interested in what the whole team's doing. The way of working we use, Scrum, involves the whole team committing to the work to be done. So it's not about whether you've got your work done at the end of the 2 weeks. It's whether has all the work been done. So this may mean you have to help others. This may mean that you get involved in testing other people's work or peer reviewing for quality, checking that the solution they're proposing is the correct one. Ownership is a big thing, particularly if you want to get a senior role. If you've got a piece of work to do, you take ownership of that piece of work. You take responsibility for making it happen. The opposite of ownership would be if you needed to get input from somebody else and you asked them in an email at the start of the 2 week period, and at the end of the 2 weeks, when people ask you, how did it go? You say, oh, I'm waiting to hear back. That would be the opposite of ownership, because if you own it, you would be following up daily and making things happen. You've got to be willing to investigate issues into code that maybe you didn't write. Customers got a problem, you may know nothing about that code, and you've got to have a willingness to get involved and find out what's going on. Domain knowledge. You don't have to be an expert in financial derivatives trading, but having some knowledge helps, and having no knowledge would hinder you. So whatever you want to be involved with in terms of business, you should try to understand. If it's healthcare, learn about healthcare. In this case, financial trading, I quite often get involved with what happens after the trade has taken place. And that whole area of functionality is known as the middle office. And I have a good working knowledge of how the middle office works and what it does. That helps immensely with understanding and communicating with the customer facing people, and also dealing with any issues. And I also am the expert within our team on that area. So if there's a question about that area, the first point of call would be myself if it was to do with the domain knowledge. We also get involved with writing tests which test our code. These we call unit tests, and it's actually writing more code to test our code does what we expect it to. So it's creating automated tests, and that really helps with quality of code. You have to have the ability to understand, take on board what can be quite complicated issues and solutions we're trying to provide. And you have to have a willingness to be a continual learner. And this includes learning in your own time. To give you some idea, I'm spending at least 2 hours a week outside of work studying something to do with software development, in addition to any learning I might do within the working day. So what might be a career path to becoming a software developer? I'm just going to give you my opinion. Other people might strongly disagree with this. That's fine. I'm just going to give you my opinion. I believe that if you want to get into software, you need to be coding daily. That's, when I say that, I mean every day. And what do I mean by every day? Well, maybe you take some time off from it when you're revising for an exam. Maybe you have a holiday where you're camping and you don't have access to the internet. But the rest of the day, let's say 300 out of the days out of the whole year, you would be coding. Your default should be every day you're coding and you're continually learning. If you have no interest in coding, this is not the career for you. In one sense, anybody can get involved with software development, but it's not for everyone. If you don't enjoy coding and logical problem solving, you have to have a willingness to be good at plodding as if you're running a marathon rather than a sprint, because there's a lot of technology to learn. And even if you pick just particular areas of technology that work well together to learn, to get a skill set, that's going to take you a long time. Don't expect to learn it in a weekend, but daily progress. I would suggest starting with online training. There's free online training, there's a lot of it. Currently, at the time of recording this, there's something called Free Coding Bootcamp. I would look there and see what else you can see in the way of free online training. After you've completed all that, then look at paid online training. You should by that point have an idea of technologies you're interested in learning. We talk about a tech stack, and what that is a group of technologies that work well together. So that might mean technologies from the front end to the back end, and including databases. And often you'll see jobs advertised and they'll want particular technologies that are often used together. So you may well choose to do that. Whatever you want to do in terms of paid, I would say you need to decide in advance specifically, here's a technology I want to learn. Coding boot camps, you can attend in-person coding boot camps, and there's online ones that, and then as well as free, there's paid. I would strongly recommend that you pick one that has a guaranteed job at the end of it. Currently, there's a gentleman called Colt Steele. He has a coding boot camp which is online. You're guaranteed to have a job if you complete it. Whether or not you're going to complete it is whether you're willing to put the hours in and keep plodding away at it like this marathon, day after day after day. If I were at school now, I would be aiming to do daily coding in my own time outside of school. I would be aiming to do any extracurricular activities related to coding. Might be digital electronics, might be mathematics, depending on what area of software development you get into. Maths and logical understanding may be quite helpful. I would be taking any subjects related to computer studies. I would take the same approach at college, doing A levels or any equivalents to that, all the time continuing the online learning, taking responsibility for myself learning, not putting responsibility on the teachers. You really have to, even though you will get taught from teachers, you will get taught from online training, you still ultimately you're teaching yourself, you're learning for yourself. You need to identify gaps in your knowledge and you need to go and investigate and find out about that. It's often described as having a T-shaped skill set where you have a wide bar at the top, which means you have a good high level understanding of many, many technologies, but a smaller number you have a deep understanding of, and those are the ones that you'll probably be keen on working in. Now, if you go to university and study computing, that's great. You may or may not choose to take that path. If I was starting from scratch now, I think I probably would. If I had the finances to do it, I would go and do a degree in something to do with computing. If I didn't have the finances to do that, I would look at online information from universities. Harvard in America have a introduction to computer studies course. I would certainly recommend that. You can either do the course, you have to pay for it online, or you can just watch their videos of their lectures. Now, the course is great and they do a number of courses. What I would say is, whilst it starts off gently, slowly, at some point it's a vast amount of information they add to you. So you may want to go through the course as much as you feel that it's making sense. And then at the point where you get lost, then come away from it and then maybe revisit it in 6 months or a year's time, have another view through, see how much more you understand by that point from the other coding you've done. Um, boot camps are designed to give people work on specific skills that work well together to get a job in doing coding. Quite often these are related to doing web development. You do need to remember a lot of these charge a lot of money, and it's a big business for them making money from people coming. Not all of them will be the same in terms of the quality and your career opportunities afterwards, or what you will learn. You need to look into them and you need to make a wise decision on which one. Whether or not I'd done a degree, I would seek to do something like a coding boot camp, online or in person, to get computer science, computer studies gives you a wide area of knowledge. Coding boot camp gives you the hands-on skills knowledge, helps you to build up a portfolio which demonstrates the work that you've done that you can show to employers. And as I said earlier, if you can go to a coding boot camp that has a guaranteed job at the end, that's fantastic. I would aim for that. Let's say you've got a job now. I would suggest that whilst you're in that job, you would also look at doing freelance or self-employed type work for other people in addition to your job. Maybe you're writing websites for people and you might start off doing this for free. Maybe it's mobile application development, and again, start off for free. And then once you've proved yourself and got a bigger portfolio of work going, you can then start to charge for your work. If you work for a company, there's probably going to be a cap on the pay they're going to give you a particular level without you going into management. However, if you're working for yourself, there's nobody capping your income. So you can, if you can get income and monthly income because you support somebody's websites or support somebody's mobile apps you've written, then you can get as much money as work you can do. Just to end then, if you're interested in software development, I've got a blog. I talk about all sorts of things, but there's a lot to do with technology overviews. I plan at some point to write a free book which will cover many technologies, just giving an overview of each so that you'll be able to speak in an informed manner about what the different technologies are. As a Scrum Master, I'm keen on agile software practices, so I blog about that. Leadership, management, coaching. I'm very keen on coaching. It's a real strength and passion of mine, even doing it informally to try and help people to progress. And I'm starting to put some STEM information there with some links. I've also got a page on Python if you're happening to want to learn and use Python. I've not mentioned specific languages. I mentioned that I code in C# often at work. I've been looking at other languages over the last year, such as Python and technologies associated with that. And I've been working through the web stack. The financial trading applications I create are desktop applications rather than web-based. So I'm studying web-based and trying to progress my knowledge all the time, week in, week out. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.